All right. So today we are going to talk about the functions. Okay. So I'll be just creating another grid in here for functions. Functions. All right. So we'll just see what are the functions, how can we develop functions, and when to develop functions in Python. Right. To understand the functions, we'll be understanding the methods as of now that we are going through. Right. So method is what? So let's say you have created one of the object. Let's say you have a string, str string, and then a method can be something that does on this string, that does some modification or returns some useful value. So for example, if I use upper, so what it does, it gives me the uppercase of all these characters, right? So it does some modification. Or otherwise, if I use, let's say, count of s, so it is giving me the count of s into this string. Let's say if it is strings, so it is giving me the count of the string letter s into this string. So method, these are the methods. This is one of the string object and this is the method. So methods are also a function, but they are inside the body of the class, right? So these are the methods. I'll come to the functions again. So what are the functions? In order to understand functions, formally a function is a useful technique that groups together a set of statement, right? To so that they can be run more than once. So we can group together a set of statement, we can give them a name, and then we can call them by that name to run the same set of code again and again. So let's say, remember the short function in list. So if you have a list, let's say L is equals to 1, 2, 3, 90, 34, 12, 28, 23, 61, 34, like that, right? So if you have a list like this, and if you L dot sort, so what this sort method does, it will sort your list, and if you check the list, so it is sorted. If you want, you can also sort in reverse order as well, like the decreasing order as well. So what we are doing here, we are just writing a single line of code. It's not some magic. Somebody has written the logic to sort. Somebody has written a logic to sort into this method. Method, as I said, it is also a function inside the body of a class. So somebody has written basically those who have written the code for Python to Python as a programming language, somebody has created Python as a programming language. So they have done the same thing, right? So they have given this sort functionality in the list itself. So sort is one of the method of this list. So it is a function in the body of this class of this list. Okay. So they have written some logic to rearrange it and then return a sorted form of it. Right. So they have done that. So the same thing, let's say, so there would be some line of code. Let's say there would be 10 line of code like this. For example, think about this 10 line of code, right? This is the code that will be sorting it. So they will create a function, right? They will create a function. I'll tell you how to create functions later. But just understand in a nutshell as of now. So they'll be creating like def func name, and then return something like this. Return X or whatever. So this line of code will execute if I call the function with this name. So what I'm doing, these 10 line of code or 10, 12, whatever it is, I am grouping, right? And I am assigning it a name and creating a function. So whenever I will call this function, these line of code will execute one by one. And whatever I'm doing, it will done. So once you see the example, you'll be able to understand it more. Okay. Also, one thing, see, in order to create a function, we'll have to write the code once, right? So if you are going to do something only once in your program, there is no need to write function for it. You can write directly like this. right? But if I'm going to use this particular part of code multiple times, for example, sorting, I'm going to use sorting, let's say 5 to 6 times in my code, right? I can use sorting 5 to 6 times in my code. So instead of writing this 10 line of code 5 to 6 times, so it will be 50, 60 line of code, I can create a function of it, right? So it will just add 2 more lines into this. And then whenever I have to use it again, I'll be using just in a single line. That's it. I'll call this, I'll pass the list, and it will return me the shorted list. Simple, right? So if I'm using 5, 6 times, so 5, 6 times will be 5, 6 lines, and this will be 10 lines and 2 extra lines. So 12 plus 6, 18 lines total. Whereas I was writing 60 lines in original code. So this is how functionality function controls. And this is one of the other way to reusing, this is one of the way to reuse your code. Okay. And also for the functional, for the design of the code, design of the program actually. So we do not just write everything one by one, right? We do not just write everything one by one. We can use the functionality to reuse our code again and again. So sometimes it will come and hit this code, right? So sometimes it will not. So that's what it is. Okay. That's what the beauty of programming. So now we'll see, you might have understood when do we create functions, right? So when we have to run some part of code more than once or more than twice, then we can simply create a functions. All right. So then now let's see how can we create functions. That's what the thing. So let's go. So you might have got a glimpse like, so def is another keyword. Okay, one more thing. So I told you can create a function and they can use it. So this is the first phase of function. This is called function definition. And when you are using it, that will be called as a function calling. And remember, these lines of code inside the function will never run until you call them. Even if you write wrong code inside it, right? If it is a syntax error, it will be caught. But until unless it is a syntax error, if it is not a syntax error, you will never get an error in this code because it is not running, right? It is not running. It will only run when you call the function. Okay, let's see. So there are 2 phases of the function, as I said, function definition and function calling. So let's say if I use def, so I can create a function using def keyword, right? And then I can give the function name, and here I can give the arguments, argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, and so on. So I can give more than one argument as well, right? I can pass as many as arguments I want. Okay. So, and here once again colon, remember for indexing it, sorry, for what do you see, indentation, right? So whatever I'll be writing at this indentation level or more than that, not less than this indentation. I will never go over here, right? That should be wrong. If I'm using some, let's say, if statement, so I can go more further here, but I cannot go before that, right? If I go write something here, so that will be out of the function. Okay. So here I'll be writing my code. Logic goes here. So this is the code logic, and then you can write the return function, return if you want to return some values from your function. If you don't want, you can also leave it as a return if you want. Okay. So this is the basic body of the function. This is how you create a function. All right. Yeah. So let's create a very simple function. See, as of now, you'll be saying that whatever function I'll be giving as an example to you, it will not be following when do we create functions. Because I'll be creating function of one line of code. So that's not probably, useful actually. So let's say I'll be creating def hello is the function name. right? What it does not return. So based on the number of argument, based on the argument pass, based on your returning or not, there can be different types of functions. So I'll try to cover all of them. So let's say hello is one of the function that does not take any argument. It does not take on any argument. It just print hello. It's a static function. It just print hello, and it does not return anything as well. So it could be, simple one line of code in the function as well. So this could be very small function as well. So hello is a function. Now I have created a function. This is a what does the function do? It will simply print some hello, print hello, right? So let's say if I call this function, let's say hello. So what it does, in order to call a function, you'll have to write the name of the function and this parenthesis, right? And if you are passing anything as an argument, so you can pass here as well. Otherwise, you can leave it as well. So arguments are used as an input to the function. So if you want to give some input to the function, you can use an argument. Right? We are not using any input as a function in here. So when I'm calling it, I'm running it. Let's say there is no syntax error or something. I don't want to. Okay, leave it. Yeah. So this particular line of code will only run when I'll call this function, and I'm getting this print hello state. Okay. Other thing, let's create another function. It's called def. It's a greet. Greet is one of the function that will greet, but what it does is different. It takes an input, right? It takes input. It takes input as a name. So if you give a name, it will greet to that particular person. So let's say I'll be using the f string here, f, and then the name. Let's say what should I greet as? Let's say hello. Yeah, hello, and followed by the name. Whatever name I'll pass. So this is the f string you want. You might already know the string formatting using f string, right? So there is no need to explain this. Okay. So if I call this greet function, and if I pass a name here, let's say I pass my name itself. So it says hello Akash, right? So now you see, and if you pass some other name, let's say if I pass Arpit, so it says hello Arpit. So it is greeting Arpit now. So whatever function, whatever thing you will pass here in this, it will greet to that particular. So the same thing. So as I said, the arguments are used as an input to the function, right? And wherever you want to use, it's your color. How you want to use them in the function, it's your call, right? So this is one of the example to understand this. The function with the arguments. Okay. So this is the okay. One of the thing as you see, as of now, I'm simply printing in the statement in the function. Let's have another function where I will not print, I will return. Okay. So let's say def, and I writing a function called add. So what does this do? It takes two numbers, n1 n2, and it adds them together. So either you can directly write a return statement with n1 plus n2, or you can sum them and then first do that. So s is equals to n1 plus n2. So see, this is add is the name of the function, and I'm taking two numbers as an input, and then summing them together, adding them together, and then returning. So there is a return statement in Python in the function. Return. I'll return the summation s. So whatever I have done, I'll simply return it. So let's say I'm not returning, I'm printing. So use the return as well. So if I call a add function, okay. So I'll tell you the difference between return and do not return anything, right? So add, and let's say I'm passing two numbers 2,3. So it is printing 5. Okay. Let's write the same thing now with return, do not print. Return s. And sorry, let's call them add one function, and then call it add two function. Okay. Add two, And if I pass, let's say 2 numbers here. So you see, this is printing, but this is returning. When I write something here, let's say 5, sorry. If I am writing something, so this cell is returning the same number. If I write some variable, let's say variable x is not defined actually. Let's say if I'm writing L, so it is returning whatever the value L contains, right? You see this output here given, but when you are printing, whenever you will print, no output gives. Let's say if I'm printing something, print fine. So there is no output in this because it is printing on the console. It is not an output of the cell, right? So when you return, so you are returning means you are giving output from the function. But when you print, you are actually printing on the console. You are not returning as an output. So what does these two makes difference? You see here I'm also getting 7. Here I'm also getting 5. Only the thing is this output. So what does it make sense? It makes sense. Let's say if you want to store it somewhere and use it further, then you can use return. For example, if I want to store my in S1 variable, right? And then want to use it further, maybe later I want to use it, the way I want to use it, I'll check it. So I have, so whatever it is being returned from here, let's say if I'm doing 30 plus 44, I'm adding 30 plus 44, and then summation is 74, and then I'll be using it later whenever I want, and then I can store it into some other variable. But in this case here, I cannot do this. Since it is being printed, it is not returning, I will not get anything. Right? Think about a shop. Go to a shop, right? So if you give them money, right? If you give them money, they will give you the product. So it's like returning, right? They will give you the product and you will come back to your home and use that product. But printing is like they will, if you ask them like, do you have Colgate? They will say yes, but they will not give you anything, right? Until you give them money. So that's one of the analogy you can understand the difference between return and print statement. If I use it to save, let's say result R is equals to add 1. See, it is still printing, but R will have nothing. See, R is nothing. It's actually none type. If you check the type of R, it's a none type. If you remember, I had explained you the none type in the beginning, in the second lecture actually. None. None is nothing, right? Similarly, here, if it is returning nothing, but still you are catching something, so what will you get? You will get nothing. So that's what this none is. You can directly return, instead of writing s is equals to n1 plus n2, you can directly write n1 plus n2 return n1 plus n2. That will also be fine, no issues. You can also use print and return both as well, right? If you use print and return, so it will print as well and return as well. So it's the same thing. Like you can try this on your own. Okay. All right, let's now use all the previous logics that I've been going through to understand this function and create a function using create a function for let's say even and odd number, finding even and odd number. And also one thing, remember the name of the function should be exactly what you are doing in the function. Remember in the first session I had told you, whenever you are naming a variable, so it is also the same thing. Like whenever you are creating a function, so function name should be matching that what you are doing in that function. Okay. All right. Tell me, how do I create a function to, let's say I have a number n is equals to 19 and I want to check if this is even or odd. I want to return. So you should return a string even if the number is even. You should return a string odd if the number is odd. So how can you write a function for that? Okay, let's I'm writing it. So def is the way how this is how you define the function. All right. And then name of the function, let's say def check even odd. And if I give a value n into this, and then I'll check if n modulo 2 equal to 0, then I will return 1, no, return even as a string. In the else part, I will return, I will do not just write odd. Remember, I do not write odd here. I will have to return odd. Okay. All right. So this is the function that does. Now here I'll tell you one more thing. Let's say if I pass 89 here, it is returning odd. If I pass 890, it is returning even, or you can check with any value, right? Okay. So this is one of the function to do that. So here now we are using logic in our function as well. Right? So now you might be saying that we had learned the numbers, we had learned the statements, we are learning the function. Now we are just going to combine each and everything and doing some meaningful work. Okay. So as I said, in the previous one, we had taken an example, objects and data structure statement. Yeah. So we had one of the things, this, I'll come to that later. Let's understand some other example first. Let's say, remember I had asked you guys to write a code to sum up all the numbers in a list. So that can be done here as a function. I can create an individual function, right? So I can do this n number of time in just a single line of code. You do not have to write that same code again and again, right? So for example, def, you already have written the code I have given into the for loop, you can say. In the for loop example that whoever is that, why don't you unmute yourself? Why don't you mute yourself, guys? Okay, def, and then you can give the name of the function. For example, def x, right? So let's say, what were we going to do? Yeah, sum. Let's say sum is an inbuilt function, so I'm not gonna name my function sum. I'm going to name it SUMM. Let's say. Right, sum, and let's say if I'm passing a list L, and then I'll be using this L, and then let's say S is equals to 0, and then for num in L, and then S is equal to S plus 1, not S plus 1, S is equal to S plus num, and then I'll be returning my S. Remember where I'm returning S? Where am I returning S? I'm returning S outside the for loop. Okay. So when the code finishes inside, when your logic finishes, then you have to do all these things. So you have to take care where you're writing the return statement. Also, one thing, the return statement in a code will run only once. Remember, return statement in any function will run only once. Mark my words. Let me just return statement in any function will run only once. Okay. So return statement will run only once. So let's say if I'm writing here and if I'm calling this sum function, and let's say I'm passing a list here, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I'm getting 2. That's not the summation of this list, right? Why am I getting summation 2? Because it is returning it. I have written this in the for loop. So this return statement is meant to run how many times? 4 times. And remember, I told you return statement will run only once. After that, it will terminate the function. Okay. Now you can say, why am I writing 2 times here return statement then? It will run only one return statement at a time. Yeah, so that's why these are the two conditions. There are two return statement, but it will run only one, and that's what we need. We do not need to run both together, both at a time, right? That's what we need. But here, what I'm doing something wrong. I'm writing. So in the first iteration itself, it will return the first number, that is 2, and then it will just go and return, go and return, go and exit the loop, exit the function. But if I'm doing here, so it will go and do all the summations, and then at the end, it will return the summation. Now, if you see here, I'm getting 14. If you just add up all these numbers, you'll get 14. Okay. So that's what this sum does. That's what this return statement, you can understand the basic things about the return statement as well. That's very useful to understand as well. See, okay, one more thing. Whenever you get the error, do not just panic. Just read the error, read the exception. I bet more than 90% of the time you will be able to understand what is the problem. Seriously, if you read the error line, then you will be able to understand what is the problem. Okay, don't panic and just to go, okay, I cannot do this and all. Just try to read it. Definitely, if you are not able to understand, then you can simply search on Google and you'll be finding the solution for it. And when you find the solution, then next time if you get the same error, you'll be able to understand that's the problem. That's how you people learn, right? That's how I have learned. That's how most of the people learn. Okay. So as I said in the beginning, Googling is one of the core skill that you must have. You must have how you must know how to Google things online. Okay. So these are the pretty much the functions. Let's say I have this list. Let me add some other numbers into this. Okay, let's say I have these all numbers, a list of numbers, and then I ask you to divide this into two different lists. One is odd list and the other one is even list, right? And you have to return two different lists from a function, right? So what you can do def, let's say create odd even list, and you can pass the list here inside it. And also one thing, here I'm passing L. So in the definition, I can pass any name I want. It does not require you to pass exact name what you are going to pass later as a list, right? In that function definition, you can pass anything, and then the same thing you'll have to use in the function definition. Okay. So let's say I'm passing L here. So L, I'll be using it. Later on, if I pass LST, so LST will be replaced by L. So wherever you're using L, it will be LST only. Okay. So here I'll be going to for num in L. And before doing this, so as I said, you can create two different arrays, right? Two different lists. Let's say num, let's say LST, right? LST1 is equals to, yeah, an empty list. Let's say, I would say odd list. Odd list is equals to this, even LST is equals to this. So these are the empty lists that I've been creating, and then I'll use the for loop. So for num in L, for num in L, and if, so I'll be checking if that num modulo 2 equal to 0. So I will append that into the even list. So even list dot append when append the num here in the else block. I can do even list dot append. Sorry, it should be art list. Artist dot append num. And then I can return both of the things here. Return even list, comma art list, right? So you see, if you pass a combined list, let's say LST, So it is returning me two lists, one of the with even list, one of the with odd list. So you see there is no odd numbers into this, there is no even numbers into this, and you can then store them into individual lists later you want. All right, so these are the basic example of the functions I have. I have given enough examples of functions, how to use them. And the previous code that I had gone through, this one of them you can also create as a function, right? Let's say this is the code, and if you want to create it as a function, so you can use as def hi company, or whatever you can name the function, and then you can give the indent them, and you can return the company name. return the name of the company, that is C, right? So if you pass anything like this, so yeah, but here you need to pass two, input. So one is the stock prices, the other one will be stock name, right? So if you pass something like this, you'll be able to see as an answer in the function. So if you are doing the same thing again and again, you don't need to write the same code again and again. You can just pass the same thing, the stock name and stock prices. It will give you the current number with the stock maximum stock price. So these are the basic things about the function. So I hope you are able to understand this, right? If you want, you can also return m as well, like the maximum value.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you can then, if you're returning two things, you can assign two variables. Here you see, here I'm returning two lists, right? So I can assign two variables like this. So first one is which one? First one is even list. So I can like e lst comma odd lst is equals to this. So if you do this, so in even lst there will be even, and in odd lst there will be odd numbers. Okay. So that depends on what problem you are solving and what is the description of the problem, right? So that's why I said you can go to the HackerRank or LeetCode or CodeChef or some other platforms like this and try practice programming questions over there. It will make a lot of clarification. You will be able to understand the logic, how to develop logic and all that. So that's pretty much of it for today. If you have any other question, you can ask or